The U.S. Space and Rocket Center has been sharing the story of human space exploration since 1970. It has educated and inspired countless generations to look to the stars anew through both the museum and its space camp programs. But why Huntsville, Alabama? How did a small southern town come to be known as the Rocket City? Well, this is that story.
Huntsville, Alabama as it was, a tranquil farming town in the Tennessee Valley, once known as the watercress capital of the world. Then came the Second World War. Uncle Sam called on everyone to aid in the war effort. Huntsville's remote location and easy access to the Tennessee River made it the ideal location for the U.S. Army's Redstone Arsenal. At Redstone, men and women worked hard for their country, building chemical weapons and munitions. As the war came to an end, America entered a new kind of war, a Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union began competing to see who could build bigger and better rockets. Their eventual destination, space. To outpace the Soviet Union, the United States enlisted the help of Dr. Wernher von Braun and his group of German rocket scientists, who had surrendered to the U.S. Army at the end of the Second World War. In 1950, the Army relocated Dr. von Braun and his team to the now vacant facilities at Redstone Arsenal. There, they worked with a group of young American engineers and amped up development on a new ballistic missile that would make sure everyone knew the name Redstone.
This is a model of the U.S. Army's Redstone guided missile, the largest American ballistic missile to have reached the test fire stage.
This missile becomes the foundation for the development of the much longer range missile.
The Redstone rocket became the most reliable missile for the U.S. Army, earning Huntsville the nickname the Rocket City. When the Soviet Union launched Sputnik in October of 1957, the United States turned to Redstone Arsenal and Dr. von Braun's team to respond.
We've been assigned the mission of launching a scientific Earth satellite. I promised the Secretary of the Army that we would be ready in 90 days or less. Let's go, Werner.
On January 31st, 1958, America's first satellite, Explorer 1, was launched on top of a modified Redstone rocket called the Jupiter-C. The next step was to place a human in space, but to do that, the United States needed an agency focused solely on space exploration. President Dwight D. Eisenhower created NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. It was in July of 1960 when the government transferred land and all space-related personnel from Redstone Arsenal to the newly formed Marshall Space Flight Center under the leadership of Dr. Wernher von Braun.
I dedicate this to George C. Marshall Space Flight Center. Here, under Army guidance, Redstone and Jupiter and a whole family of missiles have taken form. The momentum thus gained accelerates today under the civilian management of the new National Aeronautics and Space Administration.
The focus at Marshall was on developing the propulsion system and technologies for NASA. The first vehicle was a Redstone rocket capable of carrying a human passenger called the Mercury Redstone. This rocket went on to launch the first American in space, Alan Shepard, in May of 1961. Later that month, President John F. Kennedy issued a new call to action.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
With the moon the goal, Marshall developed two new rockets to get America there first, the Saturn I and its big brother, the Saturn V. As development was underway, talk began of creating a museum or space science exhibit that would showcase the work of Marshall and Redstone Arsenal to the public. In 1965, the citizens of Alabama were asked to go to the polls to vote on Amendment Number 3. This amendment would allow the sale of $1.9 million in long-term bonds to finance the construction of the Alabama Space Science Exhibit. Among the amendment supporters were the Alabama football coach Paul Bear Bryant and Auburn football coach Shug Jordan, as well as Dr. Wernher von Braun.
The state legislature and Governor Wallace have taken the first steps towards creating a space science exhibit in Huntsville. It would show the world what Alabamians are doing in science and technology for defense and space programs.
Amendment number 3 was overwhelmingly approved. The people of Alabama had spoken, and they wanted to share their story with the world. The land for the science exhibit was deeded over from Redstone Arsenal, with construction beginning in July of 1968. As work was well underway on the Alabama Space Science exhibit, NASA was getting ready to make a break for the moon. On July 16, 1969, Apollo 11 was launched on a Saturn V rocket, its course set for the moon. 4 days later, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin set foot on the lunar surface, winning the chief goal of the space race.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
With the space race over, it was time to tell the story of Marshall and NASA's accomplishments while looking forward to the future of space exploration. In March of 1970, the newly named Alabama Space and Rocket Center opened its doors to the public for the first time.
The Alabama Space and Rocket Center obviously is much more than a place of entertainment. It is an educational tool. It will help all persons to better understand that the space program is designed to benefit mankind.
Since that day in 1970, the Alabama Space and Rocket Center, now known as the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, has continued to grow. In the summer of 1982, Space Camp was created by the Rocket Center, based on an idea that Dr. Von Braun had for a science camp, whose office we're in right now. Then, in 1990, Space Camp was joined by Aviation Challenge, followed by Space Camp Robotics in 2013, and U.S. Cyber Camp in 2017. Throughout it all, the Rocket Center continues to inspire new generations of explorers through its programs and initiatives, harnessing the same drive and ingenuity that the Rocket Center's neighbors at Marshall Space Flight Center and Redstone Arsenal continue to have as humankind aims to go even farther into space. So why Huntsville, Alabama? Because we know we can.
Wow. Nerds. What a bunch of bullshit. Yeah. Way to go, Muskrat. Yep, spend 5 days at the Huntsville Space Center. What a clown. Man. That's what we're there. Now, a normal human being, that is going on vacation in Alabama, which, by the way, not for nothing, guy. Tuscaloosa. You should have went to Tuscaloosa. But anyway, normal person when Huntsville, NASA Space Center, swing by, spend maybe an hour, 1 hour at the most, and then drive all the way down to the Gulf shores of Alabama on the Gulf of America. No, this motherfucker spends right now 3 days in Huntsville. 3 fucking days. Yep. Sorry, fam, we could have went to the beach, but, here's a week pass at the Huntsville Space Center. My God. Yep. We'll never forget that sad story Muskrat said. Yep. Well, I was hoping to be an astronaut, but, my vision. Yep, blessed with poor fucking vision. Yep, Muskrat is blinder than Mole Man. Plus, he has the ginger gene. Wow. Fucking scarlet letter. Go fuck yourself, Muskrat. Immediately evacuate Huntsville and drive the fuck home. Or stay in Huntsville and get trolled. And have people point their finger at you, Muskrat. Wow. Look at this inbred fucking hick. Stupid low IQ Iowa trash. Should have went to the Gulf Shores, asshole. Yep, everyone across America. Everyone across the land. Go to Muskrat's channel and troll him for making one of the worst family vacation decisions. To spend more than 1 hour at the Huntsville Space Center in Rocket City. Yep. Turn in your conspiracy theorist pass, Muskrat. Turn that in. Tuck that rat tail in too. Tuck your chin in and the rat tail. Put the rat tail into the man bun, into the slouchy beanie, and go fuck yourself. Yep, no door foam. Fuck you, Fat Reggie. Malt Liquor.